بالایم بالا میروم باز دریایم دریا میروم باز بالایم بالا میروم باز دریایم دریا میروم ما از آنجا و از اینجا نیستم باز به جایم و به جا میروم راه یک تنگ است چون سمخول هیات ما نشان رشته یکتا میرویم راه یک تنگ است چون سمخول هیات ما نشان رشته یکتا میرویم در زبان لا اله الا الله فرد جان لا اله الا الله در زبان لا اله الا الله فرد جان لا اله الا الله اشریان را مدام این همراه تسبیح های لا اله الا الله اشریان را مدام این همراه تسبیح های لا اله الا الله کلید باب بهشت این نشان لا اله الا الله قلف دوزخ کلید باب بهشت این نشان لا اله الا الله جعفری مغفرت اگر خواهی رب خان لا اله الا الله جعفری مغفرت اگر خواهی رب خان لا اله الا الله
اکرم جان ستاری های بلبلوار تو میخوانی ما را از دل ببری نازنی قربان اکرم جان چشم تو چشما یار جان لالی بدخشان اکرم جان در تای بیت ها میشوی سرخ و سفید ما را کردی نامید نازنی قربان اکرم جان چشم تو چشمای یاری جان لالی بدخشان Na 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 نره نه Na 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 na.
یکم گلاش هران بدان یا خوش آمدی با ناز و عشوهی تو در اینجا خوش آمدی با حوریان جنت اعلی خوش آمدی وصفی تو را بگویم و هر جا خوش آمدی
های روی تو را بدیدم و هرمان کشم به دل حسن و جمال یوسفی در نزد تو خجل صد کاش هست ذات تو باشد ذهاب و گل خلقی جهان به صورت تو گشتم فعل ورنه خیال صورت زیبا خوش آمدی
شب دیدم با خواب خوش جمالی ساقی کوثر علی ابنی ابو طالب امیر المومنین ایدر به دستم داد یک دفتره که در وی نامی از بود سری دفتره کرشادم شاه مردم بوده سری رفتن علی 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 والله ولی 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 والله علی 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 والله ولی 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 والله علی 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 والله ولی 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 والله خدا گفتو نبی گفتو علی گفتو نه من گفتم علی جسمو علی جانو علی عقلو علی گوهر علی گنده و افکنده مبریده و بشکسته در از خیبره سر از اندر لبهازش داره بود از بودگر علی 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 والله والی والیه والی والله علی 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 الله والی والیه والی والله علی 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 الله والی والیه والی والله
شب دیدم با خوابی خوش جمالی ساقی کوثر علی ابن ابو طالب امیر المؤمنین ایدر بعد دستم دادی یک دفتر چی در وی نامی از دام سری دفتر کشادم شاه مردم بود سری دفتر
UCA is not a typical startup university. I would point, for example, to the remarkable School of Professional and Continuing Education. Since it launched its first courses in 2002, it has engaged a remarkable number of learners, over 90,000 in all, ranging from members of parliament to young people from the regions and from villages. I would also point to the Humanities Project, with its valuable array of courses that have attracted the support from 77 other universities and colleges throughout Central Asia. We could also talk proudly about the Institute of Public Policy and Administration, as well as the Mountain Societies Research Institute, two places that are already doing path-breaking research, cooperating with international partners on issues that will be central to the region's progress. In yet another area of learning, the Cultural Humanities and Cultural Heritage Unit's work on the musical heritage of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan are harbingers of what can be expected. Meanwhile, through our faculty development program, scores of Central Asians have completed their doctorates at leading universities, also providing a unique talent pool for UCA. All of these assets are building blocks, which now can help the Naryn campus to play its own central and vibrant role. What this university is all about is not only the power of education, but also the power of international cooperation. It is a power that can change people's lives. It is important to know that what we are doing here will be a valuable example of international cooperation for the future, not only here in the region, but also for people far beyond the region. And it is also important to remember how this example also grows out of this region's past. Finally, let me mention that we are also taking some very important organizational steps as we reach this milestone moment in the early history of the University of Central Asia. Not only is UCA launching its first undergraduate degree program, but as an autonomous institution, it is now ready for self-governance under a board of trustees as envisaged in the International Treaty and the University Charter. As the Chancellor of the University, I am making the first appointment to the board by naming as its chairman Shams Qasim Laka. Shams has had a remarkable career as a successful leader in the field of education. For almost 3 decades, he led the building, planning, and operation of the Khan University, based at first in Pakistan, but now extending into 3 continents. He was also a former Minister of Education, as well as a Minister of Science and Technology in Pakistan. After making his appointment official, we will now also be moving to appoint other trustees as members of that board, a task I will undertake in cooperation with the presidents of the founding states who are the patrons of the university. It is under their leadership that we will now go forward. What we celebrate today is not the first phase of this story of growth and progress, but it is still an early step. Even as we rejoice today, we look forward to the many wonderful steps that are still to come. Thank you.
Yalimadat, and a very warm welcome to everybody to tonight's Friday Night Reflections. Welcome to our Jamaat, our multi-faith family members. My name is Rahim Molu, and I'm coming to you live from New York City. Actually, it's not live, it's pre-recorded, but I am coming to you from New York. I've just always wanted to say live from New York City. I've been based in New York for the last few years, originally Canadian, still Canadian, was born and raised in Calgary, went to school in Kingston, and then at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. And then my wife and I moved to New York to pursue graduate studies in New York City. And we've been in the US since 2014, more or less continuously, with the exception of a 3-year stint in Central Asia, which I'll come back to in a little bit. Tonight we continue with Friday Night Reflections, the Jamaat's touch point for the week. It's our chance to hear from leadership, experts in their field, and our own Jamaati voices. And I know that summer is coming to an end. For many of us, we're starting to think again about going back to school or going back to university. Especially in these uncertain times, we're thinking about things that we've never had to think about before. I know my own children are looking forward to going back to school, although here in New York, in September, they'll start online. And then in October, they'll be back in person when we'll move back into the city, and hopefully they'll be able to see their friends in person once again. So it's fitting today that our focus is on education. The theme is unlocking doors to the future, providing us with an opportunity to learn more about the impact, in particular about one of our institutions, the University of Central Asia, which is 20 years old now, and its role as an institution of higher learning within the institutions of the Ismaili Imamate. And it's a particular pleasure for me to be hosting you today because I had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to serve as the General Counsel and the Secretary to the Board of the University and Director of Government Relations of the University of Central Asia, where my wife and I and my 2-year-old son at the time, almost just over 10 years ago, we picked up and moved from Washington, D.C., where I was practicing law at the time, and we moved to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and spent almost 3 years there where I was in that role. And at that time, UCA was very much in its infancy. It was very much an idea that was on paper, a very ambitious idea of Hazar Imam, and there were no main campuses constructed yet in any of the countries. And it was really an opportunity to help take that idea and try and implement it with the assistance of folks from around the world, many Jamaati members, including from Canada. And it really was an amazing learning opportunity. I spent weeks in each of the countries with government officials, with senior leaders within the institutions, in some cases with meetings with Hazar Imam, going through what the academic and physical infrastructure of the university would look like. And it's so fulfilling to look now, 20 years after the inauguration of the university and 10 years after I started my tenure there, to see how far it's come, especially under the leadership of the current chairman, Shams Qasim Laka, who we're lucky to have as a guest today. Last week, we heard from Council for Canada President Amir Ali Qasim Laka, who joined us for some time last week, as he has many weeks, to share with us his thoughts and guidance for the Jamaat. And he'll be returning with his new guidance to share once there is some guidance and further learnings to share with the Jamaat. So we look forward to hearing from him in the future. But for now, let's take a look at the program for tonight. We'll start with a brief introductory film on the University of Central Asia. We'll then hear from our guest speaker, Dr. Shams Qasim Laka, who's the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the University of Central Asia, and he'll share his reflections and insights with us. And as always, we'll round out the evening with some amazing musical expressions. So go grab a snack and join me for what I think will be a very interesting and exciting evening. And to start with, we have a brief introductory film on the University of Central Asia. And followed by that, we'll welcome Dr. Shams Qasim Laka, who has had a distinguished career working for the AKDN in various leadership roles. He's currently the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the University of Central Asia, overseeing the campuses in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. And in 2014, he was concurrently appointed as the diplomatic representative of the Aga Khan Development Network in the Kyrgyz Republic. And of course, many of us will know that he was the founding president of the Aga Khan University, the first university to be chartered in the private sector in South Asia. And as president, he guided this now world-renowned institution for 27 years in 8 countries and forged academic partnerships with a number of Canadian institutions, including the University of Toronto, McGill, McMaster, the University of British Columbia, and the University of Alberta, among other schools outside of Canada, including Harvard and Oxford. And we're honored to hear from him today. And it's a real pleasure to have Chairman Qasim Laka with us. We're very lucky to have him join us.
The University of Central Asia is chartered as a regional university, perhaps the first regional university in this part of the world. And it is under an international treaty signed by the presidents of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, as well as His Highness the Aga Khan. A treaty which was then approved by their respective parliaments and registered with the United Nations. The university is a not-for-profit, secular, self-governing institution. The mission and objectives of the University of Central Asia is to focus on the education of mountain societies. That is why all our 3 undergraduate campuses are located in the mountain ranges of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. People have asked, why do we locate these in the mountain regions? Also because those societies are marginalized because of lack of opportunity for education, for health, for economic development. And therefore, we felt that it was important to focus on those societies. In fact, UCA is probably the only university in the world that is focused on the education of mountain societies.
One of the things that makes UCA unique, and in particular School of Arts and Science, is that we are a residential university. What does it mean, being a residential university? It means that students and faculty share their experiences on the campus. In addition, students can have lunch and dinner and breakfast together with their faculty members, and they establish that relationship, which is unique. That could be called like UCA culture of students bonding with the faculty. When you study together, when you are together in a study group, or you share a dorm room, so you learn so much more about each other's culture and the ways people do things. So I think this cross-cultural learning and a very natural way how students learn about the pluralistic world.
My name is Nadira Karatayeva. I'm from Kazilkia, majoring in Earth Environmental Sciences, which is based in Horog campus. I'm glad that I spent 1 year in Horog because as a result I met a lot of new people with beautiful culture, dances and national clothes. Also, this year was beneficial for me because I learned one more language.
This campus seems to have everything that you would think it needs. It's got a beautiful library, it's got great eating facilities, it's got dormitories, it's got classrooms, and everything is state-of-the-art. Everything here is the way you would get it. In fact, in some of the better universities in America, they're so old that they don't have some of the electronics that are necessary and plugs for everybody to use their computers. This place is designed to make it easy to study. One of the things that caught my attention is how many of these students are not looking for an escape hatch. They're not looking for a ripcord. They're not here to get out. This is not their ticket out of Central Asia. They want to improve Central Asia. Their whole idea is, how do I make it better? How do I bring some of the things that I know exist elsewhere in the world, some of the comforts and some of the improvements that'll make people feel more prosperous and improve their standard of living? And I think that's fascinating. So many times when you come from an isolated area, a university is your ticket out. They're not looking for a ticket out. They're looking for a ticket up.
What this university is all about is not only the power of education, but also the power of international cooperation. It is a power that can change people's lives. It is important to know that what we are doing here will be a valuable example of international cooperation for the future, not only here in the region, but also for people far beyond the region.
It was great to see that video of UCA. It brings back so many memories. I was lucky enough to be there for the Narin inauguration and to walk the hallways of the Narin campus after seeing it in theory, what it looked like on paper and designs and sketches, etc., to actually walking the hallways where it was lively and bustling with people was really amazing for me to see that evolution. But let's jump into our questions with the current chairman of UCA, Chairman Shams Qasim-Laka. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a great pleasure as always. And it's a privilege to have you here with us today. Chairman, so if I can just jump into the questions, the UCA is now 20 years old, which is a relatively small amount of time when it comes to university years. Yet the UCA has come such a long way in that time. What are some of the most significant achievements of the institution to date from your perspective?
There have been a number of achievements, shukr alhamdulillah. First of all, the university started with its School of Professional and Continuing Education, which is offering short courses, certificate courses in technical vocational education, in languages such as English, Russian, Chinese, French, German, and in financial literacy as well as financial accounting and computer science. So to date, since the start of the School of Professional and Continuing Education in 2006, the university has certified 150,000 learners. Some of them have been repeat learners, but they have certified as many as 150,000, not only in the founding states, but also in the northern part of Afghanistan, where we have 5 locations, and another 6 or 7 locations now in the 3 founding states for the School of Professional and Continuing Education. This has had an immediate impact on the quality of life, on the ability to earn a living, on the ability to get promoted by those who have gone through these certification programs. So this has been one set of achievements. Secondly, we have built 2 residential campuses out of the 3 that are to be built. The third one, inshallah, will come in the next years to come. The first campus was built in Kyrgyzstan, and the second one year later. We built the whole campus in 2 years in each of the 2 locations in Khorog and Nari. The purpose of these 2 campuses is basically to start with to offer undergraduate residential education of the liberal arts type. But while these campuses were being built, we also started the Graduate School of Development of the university. The graduate school has 3 or 4 institutes. In fact, 3 institutes and 1 is in the offing. One measure of how much we have managed to impact or at least influence the people, the young people, to look at education of this type is that just this last year, with the university national examinations that students undertook in Kyrgyzstan, they were asked which would be your most favored university, your preferred university. And to our surprise, they said the University of Central Asia. Now, we have not even been 4 years into our undergraduate program, and those wishing to have an undergraduate education are opting for UCA. This is quite a pleasant surprise for us, and it probably tells us that there is value that is being seen by the people, by the parents, by the students in looking and considering education at the University of Central Asia.
Thank you, Chairman. And as we talk about the University of Central Asia, I'm interested in the name itself, and it's something that interested me even when I was at UCA. Many institutions within the Aga Khan Development Network have the moniker Aga Khan as part of their name. But I know you were there at the time that the university was conceived of, and you were thinking through the name and the terms of the treaty, etc. Can you tell me a little bit more about why the name came to be University of Central Asia and why it doesn't have that moniker, Aga Khan, as part of the name?
Well, let me assure you that it was not for the lack of requesting Maulana Hazar Imam to accept the name Aga Khan in some way. Maybe Aga Khan University of Central Asia or some such nomenclature. And this we did in 1997-98 when we were studying the conceptualization of this university. And Maulana Hazar Imam was not at all comfortable. He said that we are a university founded by 4 partners, which are the 3 countries and the Ismaili Imamate. And it is a secular university. And therefore, he said he was very comfortable if the name did not include the name Aga Khan. Now, once Hazrat Imam has offered this advice, we felt obliged to look at other options, and we settled for the University of Central Asia, which is I would say, a very neutral nomenclature, and it helps to send a message out that we are a not-for-profit, secular university, which is, of course, largely promoted by the Ismaili Imamate, but also with other founding states as our partners.
That's very interesting and makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, Chairman, you've been at the forefront of key AKDN institutions focusing on education for many decades now. We know that our current education institutions within the AKDN, though, are not new. They're built on an incredible legacy of knowledge creation that flourished particularly during the Fatimid time, and with the establishment of the Al-Azhar University and other numerous institutions. There's a legacy on which these institutions are building. Do you see the development of the Aga Khan University and the University of Central Asia as building on the legacy, and where do you see things going from here?
It's a very, very good question. And quite honestly, I am aware that Maulana Hazrat Muhammad thought long and hard about this, because establishing a university is not an easy task. You will recall when Hazrat Imam announced the establishment of AKU, he asked the Jamaat to exercise patience, because a university of a high quality is not like instant coffee. You pour water and you stir. It'll take decades, he said, for this university to come up, and even longer. So when we were establishing the Aga Khan University, Hazrat Imam has his sights on a very clear understanding. And I am repeating what he said once to a large group of donors and volunteers who were celebrating the 10th anniversary of the university, the Aga Khan University, in 1994. He said, many people have asked me why I established the Aga Khan University. He said, I thought very hard about this and came to the conclusion that if the Muslim Ummah has to regain the glory that once it had, no amount of riches or military might can do this. He said, I came to the conclusion it would be the women and men of the Ummah, if they were developed with the right approach, they could lead the Ummah to that glory that once belonged to us. So I think that is what is the objective of the Aga Khan University and of the University of Central Asia. Of course, as Hazrat Muhammad has noted, the bloodlines of these universities are in Al-Azhar, in Aligarh, and the linkage between intellect and faith is a very powerful one. And Hazrat Muhammad has articulated that concept by saying that if you want to understand your faith, you need to understand it through your intellectual ability, applying your mind. And this is where you apply minds, at universities. You think, you reflect. The Quran has invited us to think so many times on so many aspects. That is, we hope, and even though UCA is a secular university, we are talking about knowledge. And we are talking about knowledge which strengthens one's faith. So, to come back to your question, do we see the two universities of this imamate playing the kind of role that Al-Azhar has played at one time? Inshallah, one hopes so. But we have to be humble. We have to take it step by step and perform, and then let the world say to us that you have done what you have. So, inshallah, that is one of our definite expectations.
I know that there's a special relationship between Canada and UCA in particular. Can you tell me how can Canadian education institutions be supportive of UCA's vision? What are some of the partnerships that currently exist, and how are they having an impact on UCA?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that of all the countries in the world that we have worked with, Canada is the one country with which we have had the largest number of partnerships and the largest number of faculty members, largest number of TKN volunteers, the largest number of professionals working from the Jamaat at the university. We've had more than 50 TKN volunteers that have been working with us. And we have also had a lot of full-time staff, both from the Jamaat and outside the Jamaat. But the interesting part is that we've had very good academic partnerships with the universities, leading universities of Canada. For example, in developing the curriculum for our computer sciences program, we sought the help of the University of Toronto. Then we sought the help of the University of British Columbia in our earth and environmental sciences curriculum. Thereafter, we have a partnership with the University of Victoria, with whom we are working on the cooperative education. They have a very high quality cooperative education system, and we have benefited from that because all our undergraduate students have to go through a co-op program. We have also partnerships with the University of Alberta that are sponsoring some of our graduate students. And believe you me, the most interesting partnership started with Seneca College, which helped us to develop the curriculum for our preparatory program because our students are not always ready with the language, math, and science skills to take on a full-fledged international level undergraduate program. So Seneca College was very, very helpful to us. And to this day, even in distance education, we are working with Seneca College and, by the way, now with the Simon Fraser University. So I've given you an array of universities from different provinces. Inshallah, one day we'll have Quebec in it as well.
You know, listening to all of this, I'm sure there are many members of the Canadian and Global Jamaat asking, how can we support you in advancing this vision? How can I help? What can I do? And what would you say to those members of the Jamaat that want to assist?
This university, and to some extent the Aga Khan University, wouldn't have been where it is had it not been for the support that we have received from the Jamaat and those outside the Jamaat who are Canadians who have helped us to get to where we are. The government of Canada has also provided some very important funds for us to run the master's program that I spoke to you about in Afghanistan, and some research activities. So how can members of the Jamaat, and I would say, how can others from Canada can help this institution? Look, there are many, many opportunities. If you want to broaden your sights, if you want to take an experience of a different kind, and you want to share your knowledge, we are very open to finding mutually beneficial opportunities. Now, I want to be cautious that I don't want to encourage every young woman or young man who is just graduating or who is just anxious to be going out there and taking a summer vacation or a summer internship. That's not what we are looking for. If you are an academic, if you are a researcher, if you are an administrator, if you have a TK and volunteer position and you are bringing some skills, and we have computer scientists who come to help us. We have people like Ali Velshi who come along and teach media and communications. We have vice presidents of Disney who are members of the Jamaat who come along and teach us. So bring specific knowledge, we are absolutely delighted. And of course, if you want to do an internship as a young person, that's also possible. But those opportunities are not as prolific as the other opportunities, especially with the faculty. I would say that we are very anxious to have good, high quality, international quality faculty members, and I think Canada can provide that. Of course, I also should acknowledge that the Jamaat of Canada has been very generous in the past with AKU and all the other institutions, and inshallah, whenever the opportunity arises and we get the permission to fundraise, that's another way in which Jamaat can contribute as well.
Thanks for that insight, Chairman. And I know I can add to this by saying that while I had the opportunity to be at UCA and while I was there, it was such an incredible learning opportunity for me. I took away so much more from that experience than I was able to give. It made me a better professional. I learned in so many ways, not just from Hazrat Imam, but from others in the institution, from the cultural exchanges I had, from the people of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, from government officials to students. It was just such an incredible learning opportunity. And I would encourage our Canadian Jamaati members to offer their skills in providing service wherever they can be helpful, whether it's University of Central Asia or other AKDN institutions. It's such an incredible opportunity. Now, Chairman, we are, of course, in the midst of a global crisis. How has the pandemic affected the UCA more broadly, and in particular, the way in which UCA delivers education? I am a professor myself, an adjunct professor at Columbia Law School, and I had to change the way completely in which I taught my students, especially during the latter part of the semester where we were online and I was teaching classes over Zoom. So what has the UCA had to do to adapt?
I wish this pandemic had not come to this world, but here it is, and we have to live with it. Like every other institution, UCA is also trying to cope, as are other agencies of the Aga Khan Development Network in Central Asia. As far as the university is concerned, we go by what the government, we went by what the government requirements were. In Kyrgyzstan, they closed the universities around the middle of March, and it was in the middle of our spring semester, and we had to close it. And we then gave vacation to the students for a month or a month and a half, 2 months, and said, on the 1st of June, we are starting distance education. We have never done distance education in a holistic fashion, although our two campuses are connected by internet and by digitally. We have lots of meetings between ourselves. So we had the platform, we had the capacity, and we had the IT professionals who helped us to mount very quickly online courses, first in Kyrgyzstan on the 1st of June to complete 6 weeks of a remaining semester. That experience was extremely helpful to us when the government of Tajikistan closed its campuses towards the end of the spring semester and said, now we will not have any classes on campus until these are started for the next semester, which is now the first week of September. In both campuses, we are starting the first week of September. Interestingly, we are starting online. Our faculty are, some of them located on campuses, but most of them are located in their hometowns, whether they be in Central Asia or they be in New Zealand or Germany or France or Pakistan or the United States, Canada. We are getting all these faculty members to teach from their locations. Of course, inshallah, we are looking forward to all of them coming back soon, as soon as the conditions permit. So, shukr alhamdulillah, we have managed to cope so far with online education, but it's not been easy. Particularly our School of Professional and Continuing Education, which has at any time 30,000 learners. Many of them do not have connections, internet connections, and we've helped some of them. Well, as many as we can, we've helped them to make sure that they do get connections and subsidize some of their education in this manner. And it has been a real eye-opener and, in a way, a God-sent opportunity for us to try out a new mode of education. Like every other institution in the world, education that is imparting education, we are struggling, but we have made a good beginning.
That's wonderful that the UCA has been able to adapt in this way so quickly, despite being relatively young, and perhaps because it's so young, it's very agile. Chairman, I'd like to ask you to step back a bit from the vantage point of someone who has been intimately involved in the AKDN institutions over many decades. What observations do you have about the institutions and how they operate, and how it's able to succeed despite what seems like overwhelming challenges, building a university in the middle of a mountainous community, for example, a world-class university at that. How has the AKDN been able to cope with these challenges in different parts of the world?
You know, I've been serving for 60 years. This is my 60th year as a professional. And I have had the very good fortune of seeing almost every institution, from the Aga Khan Foundation, which was the first one to come up, and even before, when the announcement of the Aga Khan Award for Architecture was made by Maulana Hazar Imam in 1964. It was in Dhaka, Bangladesh, that I was present that time. And I was present, fortunately, when he announced the creation of the Aga Khan Foundation in Geneva. And thereafter, all the other institutions. I served in ACFED as IPS and Tourism Promotion Managing Director for 20 years. So I've been fortunate to have been there. And I can tell you one important and common thread through all this. Hazar Imam spends an enormous amount of time on each of these institutions, and whether they are the Ismaili centers or the Aga Khan Center in London or the universities or schools, I don't think Jamaat often understands how deep Maulana Hazar Imam goes into each aspect, not just the financial, but the programmatic, the quality issues. Who are the people who are going to come and operate these institutions? What kind of students will study? Or what kind of patients will benefit? What about the quality of medical care? I can tell you that sometimes people ask, why does it take such a long time? It took 21 years for the Aga Khan University, from the time Hazar Imam announced it to the day its doors opened. University of Central Asia, about the same period, till the first campus was built. And the energy Hazar Imam has put into all of this is mind-boggling. I don't think any other human being or any other person puts this kind of energy into their programs. And this is, the bottom line is, I want quality. He wants a quality that is internationally recognizable and which benefits members of the Jamaat and those among whom they live. This is something that we don't always see and don't always hear about, the effort that goes into by Maulana Hazar Imam into all these institutions. Of course, Prince Amin has been helping from the very beginning in these areas. And now, Shukr, Maulana Hazar Imam's prince and princesses, Princess Zara and Prince Rahim, Prince Hussein, Prince Ali Muhammad, they are also coming in to assist. And so that reduces the pressure on Maulana Hazar Imam, and he can spend more time on the broader issues that affect the Jamaat and the Ummah and the developing world.
You know, that's a very insightful comment, and one which I think we can all learn from in our own professional lives as we think about how we offer service. Speaking of which, building on your life of service to the Jamaat and the Imam, there's so many Jamaati members who will look to you and ask, what is it that enabled you to offer a life of service to the Imam in the way that you have been able to do? What advice would you give to our Canadian youth and others at various stages of their career as they look at their own lives and ask themselves that question of how can they serve the Imam while at the same time balancing various other competing obligations, oftentimes family, community, their professions. Oftentimes people feel like they're picking between one or the other. Certainly felt that way to me when I decided to leave the practice of law for a period of time and go to UCA. But it doesn't have to necessarily be that sort of choice. It's not necessarily a dichotomy. Advancing your profession is not necessarily mutually exclusive of contributing. But maybe you can speak to that. We'd love to hear your insights.
Success is always in the hands of Allah. And we have been given that message from Maulana Hazar Imam time and time again. What we have to do is endeavor. I think what I have learned is that when you endeavor, when you are committed, when your niyat is strong, niyat being intention, being strong and clear and selfless, success will come. I promise you, success will come. Of course, prayers always help. Ibadat always helps. And to the young people, I would say, don't look forward to your retirement at 60 and 65. Nowadays, health is much better looked after through advances in medical sciences. People exercise more, they eat better food, more nutritious food, and they do many other things of interest which keeps the mind alive. And I would definitely encourage young people to look at their lives as being long lives of service. It could be voluntary service after you have retired from your full-time work, but do not give up. Do not just say, well, now I have retired and now I've got old friends and we're going to play cards every day or play golf or whatever. It is very important to keep the mind busy. And therefore, I would urge everyone to think of yourselves as being active even in your 80s.
Thank you so much, Chairman, for sharing with us your time today and for your words of wisdom. It's been a pleasure, as always. On behalf of the Jamaat, I want to thank you for all of your years of service and dedication to the Jamaat and the Imam. It is truly inspiring, and it's such an honor and pleasure to hear from you and sharing with us your experiences. And on the theme of education, a reminder to all our parents and students that BUI registration is underway for grades 1 to 12. In these complex times, it's a great opportunity for our students to connect with one another, to learn from one another, to develop a critical understanding of our shared Ismaili identity, so that they're able to be more confident and resilient as they face the challenges of today. And all the grades will have virtual classes. I understand that the team has been working hard to improve that learning experience. So I encourage you all to register. And if you're interested in becoming a teacher for BUI and joining the teaching community, helping to educate our future leaders of the Jamaat, please reach out to your local ITREBs and they can walk you through how to get more involved. It's a very fulfilling experience and opportunity. I had the opportunity to be a BUI teacher when I was younger, and I look back on those experiences with fond memories. We end our show, as always, with musical expressions from some of our wonderful artists. I hope you stick around and watch that. Thank you to all of you for joining. It's been a pleasure to host you all, even though I'm not able to travel to Canada as often as I normally do in the current circumstances. It's been a pleasure to join you all in Canada virtually, and I really hope that you're all staying healthy and safe, and to see many of you soon. In the meantime, please stay on to enjoy these musical pieces, and I hope to see many of you next Friday.
خواهم عبادت کنم در وازی من، تازه بنیادت کنم در وازی من، روز و شب چون حاجیانی تشنه لب، سجده بر خاکت کنم در وازی من، روز و شب چون حاجیانی تشنه لب، سجده بر خاکت کنم در